All right, we are just starting to go live. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. We are just waiting for our guest to join. His name is Adam. And today we're going to be talking about unhealthy digital relationships. So we're just waiting here for Adam to join. I hope everyone's having a nice start to their week and enjoyed their weekend. Thank you for the wave from the One Love Clubs. I love to see that. And we're gonna have Adam Dodge joining us soon. And again, today we're talking about unhealthy digital relationships. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the waves. We're gonna wait another minute or two for our fantastic guest to join. Thank you for the waves, everyone, and for tuning in. We're gonna get started shortly. Thank you for the clapping hands. Awesome. Thank you for joining, everyone. We're gonna get started in just a minute. I appreciate the hearts and the waves as we're waiting. Awesome. We will get started shortly. In the meantime, I hope everyone is enjoying the start to their week. I hope it's a bit warmer where you all are than it is where I am. It feels like the first true day of winter, which I don't love. All right, we are going to get started shortly. Okay, and our guest joining us today is Adam Dodge. He's from an organization. Hi, Adam. Welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
I'm so excited you're able to join us today. Hopefully the weather in LA is a bit nicer than it is here in Philly. It's freezing.
It's cold for LA. It gets down into the gasp 50 degrees mark at night. I don't know if you can handle it. I don't know if you can handle it, you East Coasters.
I would love 50 degrees right now.
Well, t-shirt weather.
Thank you for joining, Adam.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Of course. Thanks for having me.
To get started and chatting with you. I always love our conversations.
Same.
So as an introduction, from texting to Twitch to TikTok to popular dating apps, the online world has created countless opportunities for people to connect and form meaningful relationships, which can be really, really great. But with so many relationships now starting online, it's never been more important to really understand how the signs of an unhealthy relationship might look in the digital space. And that is why we've partnered with EndTab and Adam, who is fantastic. EndTab is an organization that, really helps companies address and prevent online abuse. And we've partnered with Adam to create the 10 signs of an unhealthy digital relationship. As you all know, we have our 10 signs of a healthy relationship and 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship. And we've kind of shown examples of how that looks in the digital space. So for those just tuning in, my name is Melanie. I'm the Director of Partnerships at One Love. I've been with the organization since 2014 and have seen a lot of awesome growth and innovation here at One Love. And I'm really excited to be partnering with Adam and to have you on. And Adam, do you want to give a little introduction for those tuning in?
Sure, yeah. As mentioned, I am the founder of EndTab, and my deal really is to help people treat their digital safety like physical safety. I think if we do that, then a lot of the ways in which we see people get harmed online, we can prevent and mitigate a lot of that. So I do a lot of trainings for nonprofits and other organizations that, you know, work to keep their communities safe, and so that people can feel safe online and offline.
Thank you. We're so lucky to have you doing the work that you're doing, because it is unfortunately very needed. So with that, let's just jump right in. Let's discuss 5 of the 10 unhealthy signs, because I don't think we can get to all 10 in this short conversation. But let's start with guilting. Guilting is one that I have talked a lot about. And as a refresher for those tuning in, guilting is when someone makes you feel responsible for their actions, or makes you feel like it's your job to make them happy. So they may blame you for things that are out of your control and make you feel bad. And this can include, you know, someone threatening to hurt themselves or others if you don't do what they say, or if you try and break up with them. They might also, you know, pressure you into doing something that you're not comfortable with by claiming that it's important to them or that it'll hurt their feelings if you don't do it. And so, Adam, I'm really curious if you can talk a bit about how this behavior of guilting can show up digitally.
Definitely. It's so interesting because, I mean, what I say to a lot of folks is, look, none of the behaviors you just described are new when it comes to an unhealthy relationship, but they tend to change when they go digital, and they tend to become a bit amplified. So a good example is like threatening to hurt yourself, like threatening to hurt yourself as a way of guilting a partner into do something that they're not comfortable doing has been around a long time. But when it goes digital, you can really, you have so many more points of contact to issue that threat. And there's really no escaping it when you're the person, you know, being guilted. And so it can really feel overwhelming, and maybe even cause you to feel like you have to give in to that. I mean, the inverse of this, I don't know if you remember, I guess a few years back now, Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy, this is the reverse of it, but she ended up getting convicted of manslaughter because she pressured her teen partner into ending his life. And it just shows you the power of those types of statements, the power that they have, even when that person's not standing in front of you. And so, you know, just because it's happening online doesn't mean it's less than or not as serious. In fact, oftentimes it's more serious.
Yeah. Oh, that's such an unfortunate but helpful example. And I also know that something we've talked about in the past is how guilting can pop up when it comes to sharing explicit photos, which we know done a lot. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I feel like all roads lead to pressuring people for nudes in unhealthy relationships. I feel like you and I get talking, it's like we can basically find a place for nudes in every all 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship. But guilting somebody, you know, by basically you know, sending unwanted nudes to somebody, and like a partner, and then guilting them for not sending one back, saying, you know, hey, you know, making them feel bad, making them feel like, hey, this isn't an equal partnership. I'm sending you these. Why aren't you sending these back to me? And expressing hurt or frustration, or that their needs aren't being met, completely obscuring the fact that they sent them to the victim or the person being harmed without consent. And so the whole premise is not fair, and it's about guilting, but they sort of gaslight them and make it appear as if, you know, hey, you're the bad person here. You're not meeting my needs, when in fact they are, you know, exerting power and control over them.
Yeah, and I'm really happy you brought up gaslighting, because I think that's something we see so much in this context. Something that pops to mind to me is if someone chooses to share their location and then gets upset when the other person doesn't share their location back, even if that's something that they aren't comfortable with. And I think we see a lot of gaslighting there of, you know, I shared my location with you. What, do you not trust me? Like, is something else going on that I shouldn't know about? And you see kind of this gaslight with a request like that.
Yeah, it's the classic, like, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then why wouldn't you share it with me? Like that, and it's an effective argument, right? That's totally, you know, BS. But, you know, a lot of people, it's a great way to violate somebody's privacy by saying, hey, if you don't have anything to hide, then you'll tell me, you know, everything about yourself. And, you know, that's not how a healthy relationship works.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to this next unhealthy behavior, which is volatility. So volatility is when someone has a really strong, unpredictable reaction that makes you feel either scared or confused or intimidated in some way. And volatility can make you feel like you need to walk on eggshells around your partner, because you're afraid that they're going to have a really extreme reaction to maybe a small thing. And your relationship might feel like a roller coaster that contains really high highs, really low lows. They may overreact to small things, have major mood swings, or lose control by violent or yelling or threatening you. And so I'm curious, Adam, what are some of the signs that you see in the digital space of volatility?
Yeah, this is a really good example of that amplification that I was talking about, because when you're in a relationship with someone and you're in their physical presence and you're walking on eggshells because you don't know if what's going to set them off. And so you're constantly in this heightened state of tension, which is really bad for your health, right? To be walking on eggshells and be constantly stressed and constantly tense is really unhealthy, right? And then it goes online, and all of a sudden now, even when you leave that person's physical presence, they can still make you walk on eggshells 24 hours a day. Because if you are not paying attention, you don't respond to that text right away, or you just get a barrage of texts while you're at work or at school and you can't look at it right away. I mean, you're constantly, waiting for something to happen. You're constantly on edge. So the fact that the hyperconnectivity now is sort of a hallmark of all our lives. We're connected to everybody all the time. But when that goes south and people want to misuse that, like with, with volatility, it's just your constant. I mean, you wonder why we're seeing a decline in mental health and all these things, and how that gets exacerbated in unhealthy relationships, because walking on eggshells 24 hours a day is, a real nightmare. And so that's how I see it popped up, is through this hyperconnectivity, and, how people just really can never be alone or free of walking on eggshells because our reliance on our digital footprints and our devices.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's this expectation of, everyone knows that everyone has their phone on at all times. And if someone isn't responding quickly enough, or if you see someone didn't respond to your text, but they were on social media, so they must have seen, that can make someone become volatile and, send a whole list of texts, being very angry. And I think, it's a really good point that you mentioned that, feeling like you're walking on eggshells, it's really not good for your health. That's like a heightened of stress. So it is no wonder other things, it can be extremely stressful. And another thing that can be extremely stressful is being belittled.
Nice segue.
Or seeing someone be. So belittling is when someone does or says things to make you feel bad about yourself. Pretty straightforward, but unfortunately happens all the time. So it can be putting someone down for anything from their work habits to their eating habits to their clothing choices to the way that they laugh. It could be using the wrong pronouns or the name you had before transitioning. And, it can really eat away at someone's self-esteem, and sometimes can be pushed off as, oh, I was just kidding. Why are you being so sensitive? But belittling is a really dangerous sign. And so I'm curious, Adam, how you see belittling showing up digitally.
Yeah, one of the ways in which belittling really gets superpowered today is by making those criticisms public, right? By choosing to do the things that you just described, except doing it online in a public way. So disparaging, saying something negative about somebody's appearance, or posting negative things about them online and belittling them that way really takes it to the next level. Because it used to be that if you were dealing with belittling in an unhealthy relationship, it was a private thing. Like, people weren't doing it openly very often. It was usually a very, hidden form of harm. But now it's, become, I'm just going to use this term all the time, but amplified, because now you're really publicly shaming that person on top of belittling them within the context of the relationship. And I think that secondary sort of trauma that people experience from it being really public gets overlooked too much. And, can also mean that when somebody threatens to do it, it carries greater weight. That threat to belittle them publicly carries them greater weight, and can cause people to act against their own best interests if somebody is threatening to do something online, because they're so fearful of those sort of very public repercussions.
Yeah. Can you give an example of like what public belittling digitally would look like? Like what is an example of where that could show up?
Yeah, so many ways. So it could be, a couple ways. One, I've seen people um, take screenshots of private conversations with their partner when they're belittling them and then post it online. So it's this double whammy of violating their privacy by posting a private conversation or doxing, and then simultaneously belittling them, right? And publicly shaming them by taking what was a private, unhealthy interaction where they were saying, you're so, just talk, I see a lot of like calling because this impossible, um, unattainable goal of being perfect on social media is sort of on top of everybody's mind, and then using that to contrast your partner and belittling them by saying, well, look at, you comparing them to these other people online and telling them how ugly they are, how fat, or how, whatever, how gross their photos are, and then taking that and publishing it online. So that's how I see it, is really leveraging the problem that everybody has with their self-esteem when they compare themselves to everybody's perfect photos online, and then really going, for the jugular by making that public. So that's how I've seen it. And it's, when you start to deconstruct it that way, it's, you realize why people struggle with mental health today and all these challenges when the stuff goes digital, because it's just so much more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good example. And you also mentioned doxing, which I think many people might not know what that term is. Can you explain what doxing is?
Yeah, just follow any of the stuff Kanye does, and you'll basically learn So doxing is posting private information about somebody. So it used to be that like people would, find out the true identity behind somebody's username online that they wanted to keep private, and post it online. Say this, this username or this gamer is actually this person, and this is where they live, and this is their email, so that that person would get targeted in their personal lives. But it can also be something that occurs in relationship dynamics, where you post private exchanges, or you screen record interactions, or take screenshots of things and post really intimate private things about somebody publicly as a means to shame them and control them, and and ultimately harm them. So that's kind of how I see you see doxing in the news more about revealing identities and stuff like that, but I see it within relationships as posting really personal private things that are meant to be kept private.
Okay. And I know you've seen some of our newest campaigns, Adam. They're called Unhealthy Connections, and one of them highlights the impact of belittling on a character named Mario. And I think it's such a powerful piece. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how we can encourage more men to seek help for an abusive relationship, when I think stereotypically a lot of people feel that, oh, only women can be in an abusive relationship. We know that that is not the case at all.
Yeah, so I'm going to start. I am in danger of monologuing on this one because I'm so passionate about this topic. I'm so happy that you brought it up. Yeah, look, most people, most men, I think, and based on my experience, sort of think that gender-based violence is the same thing as violence against women, and it doesn't apply to them, right? That it's a women's issue, and that men can't be victims of dating violence, men can't be victims of sexual violence. And we see this reflected in media and the news. When a young girl is sexually abused by a male teacher, it gets a much different headline than when a young boy, like an underage boy, is sexually abused by an adult female teacher, right? It's treated very differently still. And we see it joked about in movies and TV shows and things like that. And so and people always give me a hard time when I use this phrasing, but it's an opportunity. That's a real opportunity, in my opinion, because we can really change the narrative on this by helping reframe masculinity, so that, because the way in which a lot of young men and boys are growing up are with a definition of masculinity that doesn't give them permission to seek help, to identify as a victim. And we need to change that narrative and create space for them to identify that they can, because the worst they can do is if they don't see themselves as victims, then they can't recover from their trauma. Like, that's the first step, is seeing yourself as a victim. So one thing that we can do is really just start talking more openly about gender-based violence not being a women's issue, but being, you know, a human rights issue, a public health issue, however you want to do it, but really including men in that conversation and giving them permission and space to identify as victims in the first place.
And Adam, I see a lot of people commenting around how much they're appreciating this conversation, and hopefully we can dive into this even deeper, maybe in another live or in the future. Such an important conversation and a topic that isn't often discussed. So I appreciate your passion around it and ability to speak about it. It's really, really important. And let's move on to our next behavior, which is possessiveness. So possessiveness is when someone is jealous to a point where they try and control who you spend time with and what you do. And I think it's really important to talk about how jealousy is a really normal human emotion. Jealousy is an emotion that everybody feels, but it becomes unhealthy when it causes someone to control or lash out at you. So this can mean a partner getting upset when you hang out with people that they feel threatened by, or it can look like a partner wrongly accusing you of flirting or cheating or going as far as to stalk you. So it's often excused as being, you know, overprotective or having, you know, really strong feelings for someone. And that's often how we see it in the media, is it's portrayed as, oh, this loving thing, they must love you so much if they're being so possessive. But in fact, it is an unhealthy behavior. So how do you see this showing up in the digital space?
So it's a great, I love that you brought this up. I'll focus on one thing in particular, and that's the ability to monitor somebody's location wherever they go, you know, which becomes really easy to do in a relationship because so many people are sharing devices and accounts and things like that. And so, you know, just using an individual's own apps to monitor them, whether it's Find My Friends or family sharing or, you know, food delivery apps or rideshare apps. You know, you can get into so many different apps that use our location and then use that to monitor them, or, you know, using something like an AirTag, like a personal tracker, which, you know, I see a lot of this now, you know, where these AirTags, I used to have one lying around here. They kind of look like this. This is a different one. This is a tile, but they're meant to keep track of our keys, but it allows people to keep track of their partner's location without their consent. And so it puts really sophisticated tools in the hands of really unsophisticated people to, you know, control them that way. So that, you know, that's like non-consensual tracking is where I see this show up a lot.
Yep. And it can be really scary to find out that someone has been tracking your location, or that someone did put an AirTag, you know, in your bag without you knowing. It can be really, really scary. Also, I know that people can, you know, take their partner's phone and share location without them knowing. So there are a lot of kind of ways where this can happen. So it's really important to be aware of. And so the final unhealthy behavior that we're going to address today, which we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier when we were talking about doxing, is sabotage. So sabotage is when someone purposefully ruins your reputation or achievements or success. And this can look like them, you know, holding you back from studying for a test, or holding you back from something really important at work, or it can look like them starting a rumor about you, or sharing explicit photos that were private. So what should we know about how this behavior shows up, and how can we best kind of protect ourselves from some of the common sabotage tactics that are used?
Yeah, I mean, to your point about, you know, again, getting back into images, but sabotaging somebody's reputation, professional life, academic life by posting a nude photo online or video of them or image of them online without their consent can have a devastating effect when it comes to sabotaging you know, their livelihood, and just threatening to do that, which is, you know, what we call term sextortion, right? Threatening, just the mere threat of posting that online, that intimate photo online, can cause people to act against their best interests, because, you know, the internet is forever. And once that photo, they're afraid that once that photo gets posted online, it's never coming down. And they're right? So that really allows somebody to threaten sabotage in a really powerful way. So one way we can deal with that is anytime people are sharing if you're not comfortable sharing an intimate image, like your boundaries matter online, offline, right? And your consent matters online, offline. So if you're not comfortable with it, like really, I always am telling people to feel empowered to hold their boundaries online, even though it looks and feels different. And two, if they are going to share that photo with somebody, no identifying information should be in the photo, so that even if that person does try to sabotage them, it can be anybody, right? And so there are little things. So one side holding boundaries, and then two, making sure there's no identifying information is one way to deal with that.
Yeah. I think it's really important that you talk about both of those things, because it's really easy to say, never send a photo, don't do it, that's so stupid. But the reality is that a huge percentage of the population, especially young people, do. So I really appreciate that tip on how to do it safely and ensure that there is no identifying information, and that reflection of, am I being pressured to do this, or is this something that I want to do, you take into account as well. And I'm curious, Adam, when it comes to new relationships, what are some healthy digital habits that people can set from the get-go?
So yeah, I love this question, because I'm a big, I'm a big fan of One Love, not just because you're an awesome organization, but because you're focused on prevention. And prevention is really like the name of the game. And so if we can have conversations before, when a relationship starts, to set ground rules, to set boundaries, that's really important, especially with our digital boundaries. So one thing I tell people all the time is just, and it sort of sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but it's, if I'm not okay with it in person, I'm not okay with it online, right? So if you're going to pressure me to send you a nude photo, by text, but you wouldn't do it to me when we're out getting coffee, then don't do it, right? Because I'm not comfortable with it, because it's easy to bulldoze somebody's boundaries, those invisible limits we set for ourselves about what we're comfortable with and not. And so we have to sort of set that bright line, or with consent, right? If I don't consent to you, don't send me an unwanted nude, right? I know I'm staying on the nude thing. Like, if you're not going to flash me when we're at dinner, then don't send me when I'm driving home with an unwanted nude. It's ridiculous, but we have to make that connection for people, because online feels so different. Another thing that I tell people all the time is, when we're sharing devices, or can I log into my Instagram on your phone, or can I, always make sure you log out, because I don't know about you, but I think universally none of us log out of Instagram. It's a pain, right? Yeah. We just close it. But if you're logging into Instagram on somebody else's device, you need to start remembering to log out, because that's where people get into trouble when relationships go south. It's like, oh, I just opened Instagram on my phone. My ex used to log in on my phone, and now I can just see everything they're doing, right? So making sure you log out after you log in on somebody else's device is really important too.
Yep. I think that's a really good that I often personally forget and need to keep in mind. So Adam, is there anything else you'd like to share on the topic of these unhealthy signs when it comes to the digital space? Are there any really key points that people should keep in mind when it comes to operating in the digital space in a safe way?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at the risk of repeating myself, my North Star is to get people to treat their digital safety like physical safety. And what happens to us online matters. A lot of people will dismiss something that happens via their device as not a big deal, or other people will treat it that way. And then that minimizes, really pretty harmful and violating things that happen to us. And so I'm a big proponent of just, it's no specific advice. It's just really treating our digital boundaries like physical boundaries, online consent like consent. I mean, it's not, in fact, I shouldn't even be calling them digital boundaries. Boundaries are boundaries, right? Consent is consent. Stalking, bullying, putting a cyber in front of it, let's get rid of that stuff, right? It's our lives. But when we get online, we learn really quickly that people treat us differently online. They don't respect our boundaries in the same way. And so we need to start taking some of that power back, I think, by being really intentional about setting those boundaries and then holding those boundaries. And so that's kind of my approach to a lot of this stuff, because regardless of what new app or dating site or whatever it is, being intentional about holding boundaries and consent and those sorts of things, it's effective across everything.
Yep. I think that's so important. And where can people learn more about EndTab? Where can people learn what you do? How can they get your newsletters? Give us the rundown how people can learn more.
Yeah, you can visit endtab.org, endtab.org, and learn about what we're doing there and who we help and how we do it. A little pop-up will hit you about signing up for our newsletter, and I send one out every week with helpful tips or awesome webinars like the one I did with you a couple of weeks ago on these 5 healthy signs in a digital age. And you can check me out. I'm at Adam R. Dodge on Instagram and Twitter and well, Twitter, I don't know for how long, but LinkedIn. And if you want to connect there, if I can be a resource to anybody, feel free to connect with me there. And that's where you can, or you can visit the techsavvyparent.com. I guess I should have said that too. It's a course for parents that we created. So that's another one on helping raise kids in the digital age.
Beautiful. And let's pause to see if we have any questions from anyone tuning in. Folks can write any questions they have in the comment box. I know there were some people who were commenting about the importance of talking about male identifying folks who are experiencing abuse and how they can feel more comfortable getting support. But I'm curious if there's anyone who's tuning in who has any questions, you can put them in the comment box now. And I see some folks are just joining, so they might not have a question. But if anyone else has a question, feel free to put it in the comments. And we'll see if we have any of those. And in the meantime, wanted to give folks an update that you can learn more about the 10 signs of unhealthy digital relationships at joinonelove.org. We only got to 5 of the signs today, but hope to do the other 5 another time. And then additionally, people can help us at One Love change and save more lives by donating to our year campaign. All of your gifts will be doubled if you donate by December 31st, which is really exciting. That means you can make twice the impact, and the link is in our bio. But again, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the comment box so that Adam can tackle any questions you might have about digital abuse, about safety, privacy, comes to the digital space, about how to hold and set boundaries. Please enter any question in the chat.
Well, while we're waiting, I would love to talk more about the masculinity piece in the future, because I think it's on a lot of people's minds, and I think people are looking for really good ways to have those conversations.
Yep.
And they're really needed. So count me in. Pencil me in.
Awesome. We love you, and we love every conversation we get with you, Adam, which is why we keep bringing you back.
Hey, I love it. No, I love, and for everybody watching, I mean, you should, if you haven't visited, One Love's website, joinonelove.org, and checked out all their resources. Should cost a lot of money and they're free. Like, you should definitely check them out. Like, it's bonkers how good they are. And I have sent so many people to their site to learn how to make a difference in your community, about healthy relationships. And, you won't be sorry. I nerd out on their work all the time. It's the best.
Thank you, Adam. We really appreciate that. Okay, well, it looks like we can close it out there. Really appreciate you joining, Adam.
For sure.
It's these conversations. Cover the rest of the 5 signs another time. We need to dive into all of these topics around masculinity. So we hope to connect with you again. And thank you to everyone who tuned in.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Have a good one. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.